my name's Kate Towsey. You would have seen that on sign up. And I'm a specialist in research operations. I'm widely thought of as having founded research operations, which is not actually true. Research operations did exist 20 years ago, long before I got into it, at least 7, 8, 10 years before I got into research operations in the really big companies like Salesforce and Facebook, now Meta, and that kind of ilk. I was just very good at marketing it, bringing the community around it, and putting it on the map, really, along with a bunch of other people. So I've written a book called Research That Scales, and some of you might recognize that I've actually got the cover, the book here, Research That Scales. And my work has evolved from really looking at research operations through the lens of how do we systematize research and how do we scale research, which is much more than, often people think about the sort of box of research operations, and we'll get into all of this. So I don't move beyond my introduction into actual speaking about it. So I work as an advisor with research leaders, with design leaders, with market research leaders, with research technology companies, on helping them to understand how do you scale research and developing a research strategy and then an operations strategy to make that so. This year, I'm running masterclasses in person, like for real, talking about real talk, in Australia, in Sydney, and across Europe and in London. And these will be about pre-work and coaching on actually forming a sort of foundational research strategy, and then working with you during the day in person on how to turn this into a real operations roadmap, which is pretty cool. So you walk out the day with a big, beautiful map that I'm actually getting printed that kind of maps the whole thing out. The other thing I do is I run the Cha Cha Club, which is a members club for ResearchOps professionals. And we do members events and productions every year and a whole lot of things really to give member support, but also evolve the field of ResearchOps. So that's me in a nutshell. I've got my fingers in many pies, ResearchOps pies.
That's the best kind of way to go about pies, I think. Well, maybe we can get started before you have your breakfast, and just dive right into some of these questions. So the first question we have is, where do you see research ops developing with the rise of AI? What skills will be more important, which less?
Yeah. So on skills, I think that the fundamental skills of systems design or service design and user research, in fact, are the most important skills for artificial intelligence, because it is at the end of the day another tool. It's a very sophisticated tool, and it's a very unknown tool as well. We don't necessarily all know where it's going. And I think many of us, if we're honest, will agree that we're just trying to catch up. But if you can step back from kind of having a knee-jerk reaction to like, oh, we just need to get some artificial intelligence here so we can say we've got AI in our tool stack, or we're like able to try and just, throw something at it. Just step back, map out your workflows that you really want to work on. Look at, knowledge management, perfect example with Condense. Where in the flow of knowledge management, like knowledge doesn't just get spontaneously managed in one step. Knowledge is created, it is curated, it is consumed, it is stored, it is hopefully reused, and then it is curated, consumed, reused, all those things all over again. And have you mapped out how that works in your organization with a particular set of audiences? All of this, if you're a researcher, this should sound totally familiar. Totally familiar. Map it out and try and understand, and don't make assumptions about maybe designers or use knowledge or process knowledge differently to product managers, to researchers, to executive. They will have a completely different way of wanting to consume knowledge, and even the speed will be different. And once you've got that and you spotted the pain points, now you've got some really good information, and you can go to artificial intelligence tools and have a look at, can I find a match between the things that this tool offers with AI and the pain points that I've got, and then you can bring them together. This is basic systems design stuff. But what I see time and time again is in the rush, two things. In the rush of trying to get things done, because everybody is rushed off their feet for very, very good reason, we forget about these fundamental things that we already know and applying them into the space that we're in. And the second thing is because research operations seems new and is new, it's an emerging space still. It's really, although it's been around for decades, really broadly, it's 7, 8 years old now at the very most. Um, we've kind of forgotten to bring our excellent baggage with us, the stuff that we've already got. And it's like all future thinking, all AI, all we've got to make it up right now. And there is a lot of trial and error, but we can do that trial and error with just good, solid systems design slash service design, researching our user and understanding and mapping their journeys, and then looking for like designing, looking for the right solution. And AI and every other tool fits into that same box.
Wow. Great answer. Thanks, Kate. Okay, well, we have so many wonderful questions. We're going to try to get through as many as possible. Um, and having said that, the next question that one of you guys sent in is, apart from a scaling approach, how does leading research ops differ from leading user research?
Mm. There are very, very different skills. So what I'm seeing in the space is that I'll start with research operations. Very business minded, very strategic, focused, and delivering metrics into the organization. They're putting a lot of, they're like grounding the practice of research, which is an incredibly valuable skill to bring to the research practice, because that's the thing that is going to share with senior leaders. This is what we've got here, because knowledge is etheric. Like we have, we have books and we've got things that we can kind of store knowledge in. We've got hard drives, if I had one around. We've got all these things that we can contain knowledge in. But ultimately, the value of knowledge is not that thing, right? The like lump of paper sitting on my desk is actually itself not worth much. It's only worth something if you absorb it into your central nervous system and now can start to make something of it. And what's so tricky about research, because it's knowledge and it moves and it's fluid, is that it can be very difficult. I mean, you'll know when you've learned anything, like after this call, Phyllis, you might have said something and I will have said something, and then something might happen after this call, and someone listening here will have like this unique trifecta of knowledge that they've created that is theirs, right? And so I can't say I own that you know that thing now, because it was 3 different things that happened in a row or even over months that created that understanding, that insight in that person. But we can't get away as research leaders, and I include research operations as research leaders. We can't get away with saying, well, like, knowledge is just fluid and it's, we have to ground it. And that's where research operations has become and is becoming even more valuable over time, with the skills of coming in and going, that's all very well, but we can count the number of we can count the number of participants, we can count the number of insights that have been seen. At least we can't count that they've gone inside and they've combined with other things and become a fantastic decision all the time. We can in some instances, and people do, but we can count all these other things, and we can put them in a very kind of digestible bit of like metric information. We can send it up to executive every time they ask for proof that we're getting something done. And that's an excellent step in the right direction. And we can set up all the systems and we can track the number of people flowing it. We can design the city of research in the organization, with its transport systems, with its bank for money moving in and out, with its stock market for trading research credits across the organization, with its town hall for gathering people and getting people to move or shape something new or believe something new or just to inform them. All of these, we've got the library that sits in the middle of our town where you can come and you can pick up all the knowledge that you want, and so on and so forth. We're just building cities. We're city designers as research operations. But we need someone, which is the research ops person coming in here, or the research rather leader coming in this side, who is going to make the crucial decisions of what we design. They're the town planners, that we're building and we're designing how it functions. But we need someone to come in and say, we're going to focus on, we're going to build the town around the river. because that will be really beautiful. And it's going to have a big boulevard like the Champs-Élysées. Or we're going to go for Rome and we're going to have these beautiful piazzas. They're going to have to design a style. And in research language, that is, the CEO is obsessed with the fact that we need to expand our footprint in Africa. I'm from South Africa, so I can use that one. And you're going to step back and go, for these reasons, for these people, for this amount. They will have a profit-orientated description around why they want to do that. The job of the research leader is to go, we're going to do that kind of research with field research or with moderated or unmoderated, or we're going to do a combination of these things. This is what I'm going to put on the table. That is not for a research operations person to decide. And once they've got their menu, they're the chef, let's go with that. Once they've got the menu and they've decided exactly what they want, it's the skill of operations to design the systems that make that happen on a scalable basis, if it needs to scale. Not everything needs to scale, but makes it happen as efficiently as possible, as consistently as possible, with the right quality of output.
Wow. I loved the metaphor of a city. That was incredible.
Yeah. One of the things that I find, if you're ever confused about your job, get out there and start, especially if you work in operations, go and sit. I mentioned this countless times on various podcasts and things. Go and sit at the bar counter at a restaurant and watch how the kitchen operates. Go and sit at a bar and watch how the cocktail, what I don't know what they call cocktail makers, the barman and bar people, how they operate, because they've all got systems in place. Go and watch how your city and your town or your village around you operates, because operations is just, it's a verb. It's how you be, how you operate, how you do. It's not a noun. It's not, you don't hire an operations person and then go, job done. We've got Kate Towsey, ResearchOps guru in the house, everything's sorted out. I will be pushing you, and any good ResearchOps person will be pushing you to decide, but how do you want to operate?
Awesome. Kind of along that line of thought, well, how would you describe the golden standard in ResearchOps?
The golden standard is pretty much what I've described, but I'll keep this part short and just kind of condense it down. Notice the brand insertion. That was not planned, but seen as it was there. The golden standard is that you have some kind of leader. It doesn't have to be research these days. It could be research, nice if it is, but can be designer, a product manager, and whoever. But someone that has enough research knowledge that they can come up with the plan, the menu. These are the things we're going to do over this length of time for these people and for this reason and for this output. This value is going to come out the other end of it. Now you've got a priority, something measurable. So you want to have that in place. And if you don't have a leader to do that for you and your ResearchOps, you are going to have to do that. You come up with that research priority. Or the set of research priorities. Typically, a good strategy will have a maximum of 3 priorities. Even big Amazon, Disney, places like huge places, their leader will have 3 priorities. They can do it, you can too. 3 priorities is the maximum that you can do. So you'll have that, and then you will have a plan that you've written out, a research operations strategy around how you're going to make those priorities a sustainable reality. Or if it doesn't need to be sustainable because it's a 1-week priority, which is possible, how are you going to just get it done, right? It's a plan. And you've got your operations person who is working very carefully, like very methodically and logically on making that thing a reality. That is not to say in this crisp world that I've just described to you that you don't have crazy going on and chaos and whirlwinds and firefighting and all the other stuff going on. But you've got like a North Star, like you've got 3 North Stars really, the sort of basic direction you're aiming for, which is not a vision. It's not like 5 years' time, we're going to have this. In this day and age, with the amount of change going on in organizations, forget about 5 years. You don't have 5 years. Things change every 3 to 6 months. So get yourself a 3 to 6 month strategy. Like that's where you start and deliver that, show value. And then someone might actually give you enough time to deliver a 1-year strategy. And when that's easy, then do 2 years, Um, and then the operations person can look at what are all the keep the lights on type things that are going on, the stuff that is not necessarily directly tied to a priority, but which has to happen just to keep the lights on, to keep the organization running, and then siphon off some of the resources to look after these three key priorities, the most important things you're going to do. That's what a priority is. That is the gold standard of research operations. What I see in the bronze era of research operations is there's no plan, there are no priorities, there's no strategy, and what happens as a result, because there's always lots to do, is that people are running around firefighting. They're basically just looking after whoever can shout loudest for the thing that they want next. Or a whirlwind sweeps into town. It can be like, oh my God, we're going to suddenly do this diary study. And then you're rushing around procuring a tool with no planning, no service design, no systems design, nothing. And you just basically are knee-jerk operations, is what I call. You're just throwing stuff out left, right, and center just to kind of deal with what's on your plate right now. And it is a nightmare. No one wants to operate like that. You've got to stop, pause, step back from the crazy, because the crazy will never end until you do, and get your research strategy together, get your operation strategy together, figure out what you got to keep the lights on. How much is it going to take? What are those things that have to happen every day to keep the organization running? And then you can start moving with some sense of calm. And in that way, then the crazy that does happen, because it will happen, doesn't sweep you off your feet all the time or pull the rug out from under your feet. You're going like, no, actually, I can say no to you because you're not our priority. That's the gold standard.
Wow, that sounds like a really good standard. I mean, yeah, things are always going to be crazy, but learning how to be the calm in the middle of the storm, I guess.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, exactly. And to be that, you have to figure out, where am I going? Like, if you imagine you're in a little boat, a little dinghy in the middle of the ocean and the storm's going crazy, if you just sit there and like go to sleep every now and again to try and get away with it and then wake up, it will still be there. Like, the storm's probably going to still be raging. But if you've now put together a plan, okay, so which direction do I think the island is in? Where am I going to go? What have I got in my boat that I can use to get there? And maybe you're not going to have the best ride until the next time round when you've got a little bit bigger boat and a bit more and you've organized yourself. But at least you've chosen a direction. You're like, I can see lights over there. I'm gonna head in that direction. Now you're going somewhere, and you can start to work your way out of a storm and into a place where you can actually start to do really interesting, valuable work. The organization in this day and age, depending on your sector, but tip in tech for sure, they are in the storm. Like, they are the storm sometimes. And you can't just sit there and think, well, next month, hopefully everything will calm down, because I have not seen that happen. The storm has continued to rage. The only time it calms down is when you happen to bump into someone else in the organization who has picked up their oars and rowed off to an island and figured themselves out. And so you cannot wait and procrastinate it. You have to step back, figure it out on your own, and start to create a space that is just like, quieter space where you've got control now.
Wow, that sounds really insightful.
And practical.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, burnout is such a theme in research ops, in research as well. Those who haven't been laid off are burnt out, I'm finding. And this is one of the core reasons for it. I mean, change has been a big thing in the last 5 years for everybody. That's put a lot of pressure on people as it is. But even prior to that, like, the spaces we work in, they're working faster and faster and less structured. So put your own structure in.
I'm going to try to apply that to marketing as well. I
Yeah,
think it's actually applicable, what you just said is applicable to pretty much every role.
it
Uh,
is.
and it maybe you could go off of that a little bit more
Yeah.
for the question that someone asked into our Q&A tab. What are some actionable first steps for a solo researcher at a company with low research maturity? It sounds like there's probably, I can imagine there's a fair amount of crazy trying
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
navigate that.
So I just want to clarify. So is it a team of one researcher, the first researcher at a company?
Um, it just says solo researcher, so I
Solo
would assume
researcher.
yes.
Yeah, so it sounds like solo. Not first, but currently the only. Okay, so thanks, Rosanna. Um, well, I guess again it goes back to I will be a bit of a broken record on this, but repetition is our greatest like learning tool. Um, you have to know what you want to achieve, even as a team of one. I'm glad you've asked the question because it also shows a mindset around not procrastinating, like, oh, research ops and strategy will come later on down the line. You have such a great opportunity as a team of one to set down a strategy that then becomes the modus operandi, the method for operating of your organization. So, Rosanna, as a team of one, maybe you become a team of two, and then three, and then four, and then you do so well, you become a team of 15. And that's going to take up all your time hiring and managing these people. And if you've never managed, figuring out how to manage them, and you won't have, you'll feel like you don't have time in that growth to set down your structure. And then you'll be a boat in the middle of the ocean with a storm. So, as a team of one, it's a great time to set down how you're going to operate. Um, as a team of one, it can be questions of how am I going to operate as a human being? It is going to being a home chef. Like a home chef has got a very different mindset around how they operate their kitchen versus a big restaurant with 150 seats. They've got liquor licenses and refrigerators and suppliers and backup suppliers and front of house staff and back of house staff. Whereas as a home kitchen, you just go and do your shopping and come back home. So it is different. But you can think about as a researcher in this organization, how am I going to deliver value that exceeds my own capabilities? In other words, speaking of scaling research, how do I scale my impact in the organization when I'm one human being with a maximum of 8 hours a day if you're going to have a healthy lifestyle? That is scaling research. And you can have those questions right now. And it might be, well, I'm going to set up my, am I going to embed myself in the most important team in the organization, the one that the CEO loves the most, because that's where the money is? And I'm going to make sure that maybe no one else gets research, but I am going to dedicate all of my research time to helping these people deliver our services to XYZ. And I'm going to make sure that I leave time in my schedule to package that up in really interesting ways that appeal to the CEO. Because if the CEO or the VP or whoever can see that value and feel it, then they might give me another researcher to go and spend some time in the second most important priority in the organization. So you can start thinking that way. You might choose to operate that way. It's certainly, I feel, a more impactful way of operating than just like, well, I'm going to set up a ticketing service and kind of triage and pick the ticket that looks the most important or the person who's been waiting the longest. So that's the one thing. And the second thing is you might go, actually, my choice in my strategy in the organization is I'm going to like look after the most important, the part of the organization that is most impactful most impactful. But I'm going to leave half of my time to be able to put together a democratization strategy or whatever. I'm going to help a particular type of designer or a particular type of PM in a particular part of the organization do particular types of tasks. I have repeated the word particular on purpose. Essentially, another word for particular is specify or spec up. Specify what you're going to do, a strategy. You cannot do everything. So don't think that I'm just going to procure a tool, even an amazing tool, Condense, or some other amazing tool out there that is going to do knowledge management or recruitment. And just because I've procured it and it now sits there, it's going to do amazing things. It won't. It will only do amazing things if you leverage it in the organization, which takes time. And so you cannot procure a recruitment tool, a knowledge management tool, this tool, that tool, a usability testing tool, and throw it all out there and think it's going to do amazing things. So what you need to do is step back and be specific. Choose what tool, for whom, what is it going to do? What outputs do I want to see out of this at the end of the day? Because it's going to take hours of your time to make sure that it works because you're going to need to support people in using it, onboard them, make sure the money's there to pay for it this month, next month, 2 years' time, and so on and so forth. So, Rosanna, my advice is decide what you as a researcher are going to do in the organization. Decide if you're going to do any operational types things and be very realistic about how you plan that out and be very specific. If you can be ultra specific and you can really show the value on what you've delivered, then you will get more time or more people or more money to be able to do the next thing on your list.
Wow. Sounds kind of like prioritizing is really, really key. You just can't do
Oh,
everything.
there's no ways. I had a team of 12 at Atlassian, a team of, I sort of forget, between 10 and 12. I had headcount in various places. And we were swept off our feet. We were looking after, it was 120 researchers at the time. And then we were enabling up to, it was 350 active users a quarter using our systems to take part in research, whether that was observing, doing research themselves, or consuming research. Because that is a big part of democratization as well, is, speaking of knowledge management, people forget they always go to democratizations about helping people to do research. No, no, that's the second part. Democratization is about democratizing the knowledge. Like, first of all, think about how you democratize the insights across the organization, because maybe the researchers have produced amazing knowledge that actually looks after everybody pretty much. And then after you've got all the knowledge there and democratized, then enable certain people where the gaps are in your knowledge to come in and do that. Maybe a designer or a PM or an engineer or someone else needs to do that, just or a marketing expert needs to do just that little bit of research there to fill the gap. So it's total cart before horse to democratize doing before you democratize what you already have.
That's a great metaphor. Cart before horse.
Yeah, it's one of my favorites. Yeah.
Well, it's kind of honestly pretty crazy to me how fast time flies because
Yeah.
it's already technically the end of our AMA. We didn't get through too many questions, but I think that the answers Kate gave were extraordinary.
Yeah.
Uh,
I
I'm
have a hard time keeping my answers short because I want to share everything.
well, I'm in general, I think when you're able to give such well-rounded quest answers and responses, nobody regrets anything. Well, that is pretty much all the time we have, unless Kate, would you be open to answering one last question?
Oh, yeah, I'm happy to go for a while still. It's super early in the morning for me, so I can keep going as long as you like.
Okay, well then let's go with one more question. Don't want to keep you from your pie. And the question would be, how should I balance standardization and flexibility in
Mm.
research ops processes?
Yeah, so I'm actually recording a podcast at the moment. It's just in production, and something that came up was setting up structures that are so rigorous that they're actually unfriendly to people. As I mentioned earlier, knowledge is an etheric thing, it's got a flow. And if you set up something that's boxed and very structured, you will chase people away because they'll feel like they're now being like marched down a particular order of things and they're being stopped on the way and they can't just flow. So there's a real trick when you design your city to make sure that you don't put all these gates in place that people have to stop all the time and then they're not able to kind of continue to learn. Also to create a space that feels welcoming and trusting and or trustworthy, because we don't learn, any teacher will tell you that we don't learn in stressful situations. So you want to create something that feels as easy as possible while putting structures in place to make sure that there is good privacy and just general respect in how research is done and how data is treated. Um, there's it's not something I can give a direct answer to because it's an art, right? It's design, really. Like research operations is a design job. We're designing experiences, we're designing systems, and then we're also rolling them out and continuing to redesign them. And we roll something out and we see a reaction in our crowd of people, and then we need to redesign. A really good example of this is that years ago, I gave Atlassians broadly across the Atlassian um, access to recruiting for free. Like, here's a recruitment tool, recruit to your heart's content. And actually, it wasn't a tool, it was a human being doing the recruiting for them. And I was still very naive about things at that day. A lot of the things I know I've learned from experience and making my own mistakes. And people went to the mall. They went shopping with a gold card. And then I was like, oh my God, it's so expensive and there's such a big queue. And the reaction was like, well, yeah, I wake up in the morning. I feel like meeting a customer today, or in 2 weeks, I'm going to submit a ticket. And then I'll just meet customers to my heart's content. And what we did was I shut that down because it was very expensive, very unscalable, and wasn't creating the culture of precision or appreciation of people's time. It's not because anyone's nasty, but just because the system created a culture of just like, let's just spend willfully. And so what we did was we put a tool in place instead. So now you had to come and help yourself, which meant that instead of just someone doing it for you, and it felt like just participants descended from the heavens anytime you wanted. Now you had to make the effort of going into the tool and setting it up. And so you appreciated the work that went into it, which was a really good step in the right direction. But we still found that people were booking participants and then not really paying attention. And because it was just kind of, well, there they are, and I can spend as much as I want. Then we put credits in place. Now every team only has X number of credits a month to spend on recruitment. And it was amazing because we didn't necessarily change the tools. We didn't redesign the tools, but we redesigned how the tools operated and how people operated with the tools. Now you've got credits, different way of operating. It's suddenly, because now I've got like, oh, I've only got 10 participants this month or 20, whatever it was, I'm going to have to prioritize. But you're not just prioritizing your participants. Now you're prioritizing what research are we going to do, which is a phenomenal shift just off the basis of adding in credits. Suddenly, all the product teams are prioritizing what research needs to happen, but also they're bartering with each other because some people have credits left over and then they're bartering those credits over to another team, which means they're having discussions around what research everybody is doing, and they're discovering actually we're doing something kind of similar. Maybe we can share our information, our insights. And so that one little shift and redesign in the system helped people to prioritize and helped them to start to break out of silos as well. And this is the fascinating thing when you're designing and redesigning. I can't even remember the main question, but I think I answered it.
Well, I think that was an amazing answer with a great example that shows how important research ops is.
Yeah. Yeah. And design. I would love to wrap up with one last thought that kind of takes everything we've spoken about. And it's something we spoke about in the green room. It's easy to think because we're technology and forward and artificial intelligence and research operations emerging field that everything's made up and brand new. And to a degree, it is. We are reconstituting old ingredients in new ways, and everybody's doing that. So don't think that you need to learn brand new things or find new people and new professions to do things. The most important skills you can bring to in research ops is number one, curiosity. But strategy, like this is ancient stuff from the battlefields of like Europe, old stuff. Strategy, read everything you can on strategy. Read everything you can about how businesses operate. Harvard Business Review is a brilliant resource for that. When you want to manage knowledge, get a librarian. Librarians have been around for centuries, since the days of ancient Egypt and Alexandria's library. Get librarians on board. Look at service design, look at systems design. This is standard user research. We've been harping on about this for now like 15 years. This is basic standard stuff, and you don't need anything more than these basic ingredients. It's like flour, water, salt kind of stuff to make amazing things.